You're listening to the Weekend Sport Podcast with Jason Pine from News Talk ZB.
A bit of a surprise yesterday morning, waking up and seeing Everton had been deducted 10 points in the English Premier League for the saga around financial breaches. I don't think many people saw the nature of the punishment coming when it landed yesterday. The league's profit and financial sustainability rules basically allow clubs to lose around about 215 million, roughly in New Zealand. So it's 105 million pounds to make it in the British parlance. And they lost 124.5 million pounds. The Rules Committee finding them 10 points or deducting them 10 points, and they put them down now to 4 points in the league. This is the reaction of the Everton interim CEO, Colin Chong.
Myself and everybody at the club are shocked and disappointed by the ruling of the Premier League Commission. We believe the sanction is disproportionate and wholly unjust. The club's view is that the harshness and severity of this punishment are neither a fair nor a reasonable reflection of the evidence that was submitted to the Commission. For that reason, the club intends to appeal the outcome before the Premier League Appeals Board. This is a sporting sanction that directly impacts supporters. The club and our players and staff and our fans will stick together in the face of what the club believes to be an unprecedented and disproportionate sanction. As we enter the next phase of this legal process, there is no further comment we can or will make, but rest assured, we will be standing up for Evertonians and our great club.
So that's the Everton point of view of things from their interim CEO. Their independent commission from the Premier League said the club's overspending was the result of Everton taking a chance that things would turn out positively, and then they failed to manage their finances, so they didn't operate within the threshold that was required. Let's go to Everton. Peter McFarlane is one of the hosts of the Blue Room podcast. He joins us now on the program. Peter, what was your reaction when you heard this news that your club had been deducted 10 points in the English Premier League?
Reaction was shock and disgust, to be honest with you. I think that we all knew that some kind of sanction was coming. We all knew that that Everton were obviously being investigated and that the findings would be released soon. But I think when we heard that it was a 10-point deduction, I think that it was absolutely shocking and appalling, to be honest with you. There's no precedent set in the past to have anything to compare it to. When we realise as well that the Premier League's own rules state that a club that goes into administration only get a 9-point deduction, and Everton received a 10-point deduction, that kind of shows the level of just how harsh this sanction is. I know the Everton Football Club were working so closely with the Premier League over a number of years as well, which meant that our transfers in particular were being monitored. You know, we were having to sell players to balance the books. I think we tried to do our best to jump through every hoop and try and help the Premier League as much, by being as upfront as possible. And it seems that the Premier League have then decided to stab us in the back. So it's a pretty horrible situation.
As you said, they expected some sort of sanction because the club had self-referred themselves over this matter, and for the Premier League to drop 10 points, obviously the feeling is amongst the fan base that this is overly harsh.
Absolutely, and certainly when you think that the report specifically states that there was no, the sporting aspect of it didn't come into it. There was no sporting advantage, was the words within their own findings. So for us to have a sporting sanction just seems wholly unreasonable. They specifically stated about that they didn't believe that a financial sanction would be enough because we have a in quotes, rich owner. An owner who was actually looking to sell the club anyway, so he's already looking to leave. The board members who were there last season are no longer at the club. So it feels, to me and to every Evertonian that this sanction doesn't punish anyone but the supporters and the football club as a whole, rather than the people who were responsible for any kind of infraction or any kind of financial mismanagement. It seems wholly unfair to me. It seems wholly unfair. I'm sure to a number of supporters as well. We've had support from supporters of clubs up and down the country who also think that it's unfair, and I'm sure a number of clubs now will be looking at this and will be worried as well, because another message that it sends to these clubs as well is that you can be as upfront and honest as you like, but this is how the Premier League will treat you if you are.
And now you've got 3 clubs that are planning to sue Everton as a result of this breach. So it's all getting rather messy, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I take that with a bit of a pinch of salt, because I think 2 of the clubs who were looking to try and sue us both got relegated in the same season, and not both of them could have stayed up if we would have gone down. So I think it's quite a childish sort of, quite a childish sort of attitude to take from those clubs. At the end of the day, we stayed up because we were better than them over the course of 38 games in a season. I think I'd be embarrassed if Everton were to do something similar to really try and, kick a club while they were down, because I think that at the moment, clearly Everton Football Club, we're being punished already for something which seems an excessive punishment for other clubs to then decide that they would like to go out after us and make that even worse. I think that would be totally disrespectful to the spirit of the game, regardless of how much money they believe that they could potentially get. I don't think that could go anywhere. Personally, as I say, the sanction, the report within the sanction specifically states that there was that we didn't have any kind of sporting benefit. It was purely, I mean, this financial matter was to do with a loan payment on a stadium, which was disputed. It's nothing to do with overspending in terms of transfer fees. We've been quite frugal over the past few years. So, yeah, if they want to try and bring that, in my opinion, they'll just be wasting the money on lawyers' fees.
So you're down to 4 points as it stands, 19th on the ladder. Can you still survive this season?
Absolutely. I think if anything, this gives us a boost in terms of what it's going to do for the fan base, what it's going to do for the football club. The Premier League have actually managed to do something that no Everton board have managed in a number of years, and that's really galvanised the fan base. And I feel that we're all going to be pulling in the same direction now. It's going to be a sort of, we have this saying about the dogs of war mentality at Everton, and I think you're going to see that in full force now. I think the Evertonians, we will get together, we will support our team. We will fight for our club from the first kick till the last, from now till the end of the season. So I think it's, I don't think Goodison Park will be a very nice place for the opposition to come. Certainly not the referees either. I think it's going to be a bit of a bear pit atmosphere, and I'm really looking forward to it, to be honest with you. But I've got every faith in this group of players, and certainly in the manager as well. I think Sean Dyche is made for this kind of situation. And yeah, I'm actually feeling more confident of staying up now than I did do over the last 2 seasons.
Next Monday morning, New Zealand time, so Sunday evening, yours, Goodison, Manchester United on their way there. How big's that game going to be?
It's going to be huge, and I'd recommend that anyone listening watches that game, because I think, to put it this way, the Evertonians have been doing a bit of a fundraiser to raise some funds for some banners to show our displeasure to the Premier League, and we're currently up to about £30,000 in terms of the money raised purely to show our displeasure to the Premier League. So if nothing else, the atmosphere is going to be electric. So I'm really looking forward to it. As I say, I think every Evertonian will be building up for this all week, and it's going to be interesting.
And the big question around this is Manchester City and Chelsea still being investigated around this. Everton's one seems to have been tied up relatively quickly. The Manchester City case is dragging on, and what's the feeling around what those 2 clubs might now cop, given what your club has copped?
Yeah, well, I certainly think that Manchester City and Chelsea will be worried, but what I would say about the Premier League is that, our opinion when we talk about the integrity of the league and the integrity of this whole panel, in terms of the sanctions that they've handed down to Everton, if they want to set that precedent of 10 points deducted for a single breach, with less, we're talking less than £20 million, which is a lot of money, but it's not in the world of football. I'm assuming that the charges levelled against Manchester City and Chelsea will involve figures well beyond that. So I think that Chelsea and Manchester City will be worried. The difference being is that I think that those 2 clubs are far more favoured than the Premier League. I think that's part of the thing that's left a bit of a bitter taste in our mouth, is the fact that Everton's was almost rushed through to get this decision put through quickly, when Everton seems to be the club who are trying to work with the Premier League, whereas the other 2 clubs seem to be a bit more standoffish, and as I say, they have the money to be able to get it in the court and get lawyers and delay it as much as possible. But I think eventually, if once those are seen, put in front of the panel, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens, and also a number of other clubs as well who I know are close to, if not worse, in a worse position than Everton have been.
Watch this space. Peter, best of luck for the week ahead in that countdown to the game at Goodison. Appreciate your time with us here in New Zealand on News Talk ZB.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm up the Toffees.
Peter McFarlane joining us from the Blue Room podcast, an Everton fan podcast. And as you heard there, they've got something cooking for that game against Manchester United at Goodison. I think it's 5:30am next Monday because we're on an international break at the moment. So, 7.5 days' time. They've got some banners. What do you say, £30,000 they've raised to make some banners? I think that could be a very, very interesting match indeed. One text in, 9292, says, bit rough on Everton, Elliott, considering Man City, Man U and Tottenham have been doing it for years. I think there's certainly a couple of clubs there, Manchester City being one and Chelsea being the other, that should be rather worried. Manchester City with 115 charges levelled at them. People have been asking, well, how come Everton's sorted now and that was more recent? I think it's just the weight of the charges, 115, and as alluded there, it's going to go through the courts. I mean, it may not be this year, it may not be next year until we get some sort of clarity on whether there's a punishment, whether they're found guilty, whatever it might be on those 115 charges. Chelsea, unclear as yet, but they seem to be also mentioned in dispatches around a lot of the reporting around this. It'll be interesting to see whether Everton gets their appeal back. I mean, they've been reduced on the ladder. You look at the ladder now, it's not a suspended sentence. It hasn't been subject to appeal. It has been dropped off them on the ladder at the moment. So they're down to 4 points on the English Premier League ladder. That puts them second to last at the moment, just above Luton Town. A fair bit of confidence, though, there from Peter that they can find their way out and get them through and stay up in the Championship. I don't know what, Premiership. I don't know what happens, though, if they win their appeal. Do they get those 10 points back somehow? When's that going to be heard? Don't know how that works, but interesting times. And as mentioned there, a few clubs now circling, going, we're going to sue Everton to the tune of quite a considerable amount of money, maybe hundreds of millions, to try and get some compensation because they were dropped or relegated. Everton stayed up, got more access to TV money. Whole thing's going to get very, very murky indeed.
For more from Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, listen live to News Talk ZB weekends from midday or follow the podcast on iHeartRadio.